What's up, guys? Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm Rob Whiteside. Deep in the Plus is where we go into the Disney Plus vault. We look at all the movies that are in there. We find a good one. We share it with you. We go deep into the trivia. And tonight, man, I am so excited. This is one of my all-time favorites. And to bring it to you, also one of my all-time favorites, it's Katy from Disneyland News Today. Katy, how are you?
Oh, I am doing great. Excited.
Yes, absolutely. You know, you and I share a lot of favorites when it comes to Disney movies. We did a review of The Rocketeer. That was absolutely one of my favorites. And man, tonight we are going to be talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And again, I know a lot of people are like, you know what, Rob, that's really not that deep into the Disney catalog. I know that one. But again, not a movie that most people would go and like dial up first thing when you pull up Disney Plus. Normally you're looking for Mandalorian or WandaVision or, you know, Loki's coming soon. But this one is one that is on there for you whenever you want it. And if you've seen it, you love it, I assume, because we do. And if you haven't seen it, then hopefully we can talk you into it tonight. So no surprises about what we're going to say at the end about how we feel about this movie right from the start. But Katy, I know that you also are into the source material from this one, right? The book that started it all.
So I guess we can start with the book because the film is based on the book. So I actually have a copy. If you guys haven't seen, this is Who Censored Roger Rabbit. It's like I'm about to read it to you guys. But this came out in 1981, which is about 10 years before the movie actually came out. And it's called Who Censored Roger Rabbit. It is nothing like the film. The only characters that are in the book that show up in the movie are Jessica, Roger, and Eddie. Benny the Cab, Dolores, all these side characters, no one is in it. This book starts off as Roger, like these characters, they have thought bubbles. They don't actually speak. They have thought bubbles, and Roger hires Eddie to help him figure out what Jessica's doing, somewhat like the movie. The movie follows a little bit, but then Roger gets killed. Roger dies like halfway through the book, and he's floating around, and he made a doppelganger of himself that Eddie is trying to help figure out who murdered Roger. And it's really not the greatest. They actually before this book was even published, they handed this off to the Disney company for a possible film, and they turned it down for years. So this book is kind of controversial in the Roger Rabbit fandom. Some people love it, some people hate it. Obviously, right away, it wasn't what the company was looking for, but there were like so many script modifications that led to Roger Rabbit.
Leaded, I'll allow it. Hey, Katy, everybody in the chat's saying you're a little quiet. So is there any way that
Really
you can
quiet?
boost a little? Yeah.
I can scoot closer. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, and now you look the same size, too, as me. That's great. So, you know what, talking about making this movie, too, I mean, they ended up putting together 3 studios to make this movie. You had Silver Screen Partners, Amblin Entertainment with Steven Spielberg, and Walt Disney Studios. And it was really done with Touchstone Pictures. It wasn't actually a Walt Disney movie. And, you know, honestly, I forgot how some of the content is in this thing. It definitely does not feel as Disney as I thought it did. Like, it's been a minute since I watched it. There's a lot of like questionable material in it. It came out in 1988. It was actually budgeted for $50 million, made $329 million, which was a huge hit at the time. So this movie, I feel like, was a huge game changer. And yet at the same time, Disney had a whole history of making live action movies with animated characters in them.
Yes. So it's interesting because Touchstone was actually created for Roger Rabbit. They made this production company specifically for the film. And then obviously we see characters from Warner Brothers and Disney and all these finally blended in one world, one little Toontown. And it's like this perfect concoction that took so many years to create. This film to this day is still one of the most expensive films ever in Hollywood because you're doing live action sets. It may be Disney had some films where it was like character interaction with live action, but this is the first film where you really see the characters, like the animated characters interacting with the live action stars. So it's really crazy to see. Like this year, I'm pretty sure it was in production for 4 years, if I'm right, which is insane for a film. But they actually hand-painted every single cell. Every single frame that you see is hand-painted in the film. There's even some certain parts where you can see through, like Roger looks a little transparent, which I think adds charm to the film, and we're probably never going to see something that has this much effort put into it again. So I think Roger Rabbit is a treasure because of that.
Nice. Getting a lot of other comments. So hopefully, one of the comments about audio was that I was a little too loud and you were a little too soft. So hopefully, hopefully we're a little bit more even out. So again, in the chat, let us know. We want it to be a pleasant experience because this is a great movie, and so I don't want anything to come in between us and you talking about this movie. So looking at the movie itself and how it was put together, you're right. It is very charming. I was watching it and watching the animation like with Jessica Rabbit when she is walking out of like the garage after she slaps Eddie Valiant. And I was thinking that animation, like if you did that today, would you try to copy that and make it look like that? And it wouldn't. You just couldn't. You couldn't do it just like it is. You couldn't do it justice, I don't think.
I don't think so. There's always been up in the air, will Roger Rabbit get a sequel? I hope not. I really, really hope not, because it will never be done like how the original was done.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is one of those that feels like it doesn't need a sequel. So when, starting back at the beginning of this movie, so, obviously it took a lot to pull it together. I look at this too in the way of you mentioned it, all of the IP that's mixed in. I mean, you have like you have Droopy and you have like the Looney Tunes and the Walter Lantz stuff all mixed together, which is great. But I just think about 2020 or before when they were trying to renegotiate with Sony and Marvel and how hard that was just to get that one character, Spider-Man, into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and make that deal. And then here we have character after character that are all thrown together here. From a physical standpoint of like the animation and how that would look, a sequel would be hard. From a mixing IPs, it feels like it would be impossible.
Yeah, so this in the beginning when they were starting on this film, no studios wanted in. Nobody wanted to be a part of this until they were able to hand over the film to Steven Spielberg, who eventually had Robert Zemeckis join, who's the director from Back to the Future, and people really started to take it seriously then. Because Spielberg at the time had really wanted to get into animation, which we see later in the 90s with Animaniacs. So Roger Rabbit was really his push into animation. And I think once they saw that, oh, these big guys are ready, like they want to do it, everyone wanted in. And it's crazy because even like the Warner and Disney characters, in the scene between Mickey and Bugs, they have the same exact number of lines. The studios were very, very careful about making sure it was fair across the board for all of the companies, which I think is interesting.
Well, yeah, and I want to go through this like line by line, and I also want to bounce around. But before we do anything, I want to ask you, like, you just saw this recently. I want to ask you a couple trivia questions about the cartoon that opens this up and see if you know. Are you ready? And again, if you're in the chat with us, tonight, you could play along too. So in the very beginning, as this opens up, before we know what's going on, and I the very first time I saw this, I did not know what was going on. I watched this movie, and it opens up with a cartoon, almost as if like that's the way movies were supposed to open up, with a cartoon. And so it opens up with this cartoon of Roger and he's with baby Herman. And what's the name of that cartoon, Katie?
For baby Herman?
The one that the movie starts off with, what's the name of that cartoon?
Oh, it's like Toddler Trouble or something Trouble.
Something's cooking.
Something's cooking. Oh, yes, they are in the kitchen.
But so, like, little details like that you wouldn't necessarily pay attention to. And again, I've seen it not hundreds, but I've seen it a bunch. And I don't know that I paid attention to that going through. So I was like, I wonder if anybody has. You ready for the second one?
Yes.
This one might be a little bit easier for you. There's a vacuum in it. What's the name on the side of the vacuum?
Oh, God. Is it Maroon? Did they have it be Maroon Studios? No,
there was a lot of Acme stuff in that opening scene, which is, that follows suit with Looney Tunes and Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner and even Bugs Bunny. There was a lot of Acme in that, but no, this one has a name on it.
I have no idea. Is it like a regular vacuum brand?
No.
No idea.
Suck-O-Lux.
Sucko Lux.
Yeah, and they show it a couple times, and in the end of that, when they call a wrap on the cartoon and you start the live action, there's actually almost like a real version of the Sucko Lux sitting there next to the refrigerator that they drop on Roger. Last one, you ready?
Yes.
The name on the oven, the brand of the oven.
Obviously, I haven't been paying attention to the brand names, but I have no idea.
Dawn answered in the chat about the vacuum and said Sucko something or Sucko Lux or something, and there was a guess for Hoover, Chapek. Too soon. So the oven is one word across it, and it's called a hotter than hell. Hotter than hell. Like that's the name across it. Which again, they show it a few times. Anyway, so they open up with this cartoon. That's the end of the trivia portion. I'm sorry that I had to throw that at you, but I figured it could have gone either way. It could have gone, you were like, that's easy, I know that, or you would have been like, that's a really random fact. So again, everything in it is Acme. It's a really neat animation. It's almost like it's more 3D, and it's not 3D, but it's more 3D than a typical cartoon. And it's very Tom and Jerry, very Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner in the way, like that he keeps trying to do something, and then the knives get thrown at him, and Baby Herman's trying to get the cookies and all that. And it's just a neat cartoon, and I almost I wish I could have seen the end of it. But as they're in this cartoon, they drop a refrigerator on Roger. They open it up, and he's got tweeting birds coming around his head. But the script clearly called for stars, and that's a really neat transition, though, because now we're into the actual movie. But the fact that the cartoon at the front blended with the movie, I almost think they might have been sitting around and saying, wouldn't it be neat if one blended into the next? Because it's really neat, and you see behind the scenes of as if there are people, instead of drawing cartoons, they're shooting them with this society of toons that are like actors, and they all live in the same place, very much like Vista Way used to be with college program kids. They all live in the same place in Toontown, and they all are working in showbiz. So that's kind of neat the way it opens up. I really love that, and then we start into the regular thing, but beforehand, there's a very controversial scene where Baby Herman is walking off set, and he looks up a woman's skirt and makes a face and keeps walking. There's a lot of little things like that, I guess, in here. But that moment is one where I'm like, oh, wait, you know what? Not Disney, Touchstone.
Yeah. And this film is based to be set in the 40s, which I'm sure an actor would do that to someone on the set. But maybe not a baby.
Okay. So in this, they're at Maroon Studios, and they bring R.K. Maroon, who is the head of the studios, brings Eddie Valiant in, and we're meeting Eddie Valiant for the first time, and he is a detective, and he wants Eddie to take a case where he is going to take some pictures to prove that Roger's wife is having an affair. And at this point, all we know is it's Jessica Rabbit, or it's Roger's wife, and he's Roger Rabbit, she's Jessica Rabbit. We don't know anything other than that about her. But even at this point in Maroon's office, there's like a little statue of Mickey Mouse, which I thought was kind of cool. And I'm just looking the whole time, because again, I know this story at this point just for Easter eggs, little things hidden all over the place. I want to read the posters that are on the wall of all the other Baby Herman, Roger Rabbit cartoons. Just so many neat little things. And then there's all this joke dialogue, I'm trying to remember. Oh, he's like, hey, Eddie, what do you know about show business? And he's like, it's like no business I know. And yeah. I don't know if most people get those jokes, especially now. Do those stand the test of time?
Oh, I feel like everyone knows that song. I don't know. I also live 30 minutes from Hollywood. So it may be a little different.
And then somebody mentioned this earlier in the chat when Dumbo shows up at the window. He's like, oh, yeah, he's on loan from Disney. And then he goes, best part about him, he works for Peanuts.
The script gets a little cheesy sometimes. My favorite to this day is when he goes to the trolley, the red car trolley, and Eddie hands the guy a check, and he goes, "What do I look like, a bank?" and shuts the door. I don't know why. I always think of that from this movie.
That is a little random. So Eddie takes the case and he's walking out, and then again, it's just a montage of just like little throws and Easter eggs. The ostrich is walking in, and the hippo's walking out. The hippo from Fantasia, and there's like Clarabelle's there. Clarabelle Cow. She's putting on lipstick because she's there for a cattle call. Get it? Cattle call. Hey-oh, she's a cow. And then as they go outside the studio, you actually see Brer Bear for like a half a second, which I thought was kind of interesting. So then he gets.
I was reading something. There are 81 Disney characters.
I would have thought more.
Disney characters. 14 different subgroups. So like the Fantasia group counts as one. So there were 14 different groups. While Looney Tunes characters, it was only 14 or 19, I think.
Okay, I'll buy that.
It shows you Disney obviously has a huge family when it comes to the characters. Even in the 90s they did. Yeah,
for sure. So now we see Eddie, and he gets on the red car, and that's when they have that joke that you were talking about, because now he's got a check because Mr. Maroon told him he was going to pay him $100. $100. They also use the word simoleons a lot in this, which I kind of like. But so $100, but he gives him $50 now, and he's going to get him $50 after the job's done. So he goes and sees Dolores and wants to borrow her camera because his is in the shop, and she's like, "Pawn shop, Eddie?" And so then he goes. After all this, he goes to the. Oh, by the way, do you know the name of that bar where Dolores works?
It's not the red car. Is it?
The Terminal Station Bar.
The Terminal Station Bar.
Yeah, but yeah, so the red car is part of this whole thing, and I love the fact that that's kind of, again, like a Disney parks tie-in. Like now they have the red car at DCA, and I hope they never get rid of it. But at the same time, it looks ridiculous coming out of an Avengers hangar. I hope they fix that somehow.
Yeah.
But the red car, I mean, especially for you who is always out in California and in the parks, the red car, seeing it in there, I mean, does that give you all the feels? Is it accurate? Do you compare it to the original?
Don't hate me, guys, but I love Disneyland way more than I love Disney California Adventure. But I love Buena Vista Street. I love Buena Vista Street, and I love the red car trolley. And I remember I had not moved to California yet, and it was Roger Rabbit's 25th anniversary, Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin. And I flew all the way out to California just to go, and they had like a little Roger sitting on the red car one day. I was like, see, people, they remember. It's from Roger Rabbit. Or at least a little homage to it in the parks that it's featured in Roger.
Yes. So, it is really neat that's a thing that's there. But so the red car plays a big part in this movie. And then he goes off to take the pictures at the Ink and Paint Club. And I love the fact that the bouncer says, this is one of my favorite lines. He's like, "Password." And he says,
"Walt sent me."
So good, right?
It is good.
Yeah, and then the fact that it's a big ape, and he's like nice monkey suit, and then he says back, "Wise ass," which again was that reminder. I'm like, okay, again, not a Disney movie. It's just it was just a little edgy, which was really cool. So then they get into the Ink and Paint Club, and Donald and Daffy are doing dueling pianos, which is genius. But he points out a lot of things that like you would think about. Like, these are both ducks, and they're both cartoon ducks, but they both have speech impediments. But Daffy can't understand Donald. He's like, does anybody understand this guy? And the fact that Daffy has a fairly normal speaking voice and Donald's is very quacky, it's the first time you're seeing them side by side, and that's kind of funny. But then the fact that he goes, I shouldn't be working with guys with speech impediments, yet obviously Daffy has his own. And then the other thing is, why are ducks always angry, Katie? Why?
I don't know. I hate seeing when it's all the group merchandise and Donald's always so upset on it. Everyone's happy, having a great time, and Donald is just upset always.
Yeah. I just like these little things that I'm watching and I'm paying attention to going, yeah, ducks are usually angry. I don't know why, although Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Daisy are always in good spirits, so that shouldn't be the case. Yeah, he's a little cranky.
One thing that I love about this scene too, if you guys have time or you're mega movie fans for Roger Rabbit, I recommend watching the behind the scenes because they have a scene of them filming the Ink and Paint Club lounge, and obviously the waiters are all penguins. So the penguins from Mary Poppins are the waiters at everyone's table, and they're all carrying around trays like this around the restaurant. And obviously they had to do hand-drawn animation over the frames that they cut from the movie. So what they did is they had robotic arms carrying the trays all around like this between the tables. It was just people carrying around little robotic arms. And it's crazy to see, wow, this is really how it was like before the animation came in. So they did a lot. And even when they pour the glass, there's like a robotic hand where the penguin pours it and then they animated over that. So that is something cool to check out if you have time, you would like to see it, or don't spoil the movie for yourself.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it, the the whole movie is I guess actors are used to this now with CGI, but the whole movie, is a character Roger who's not really there. There was a TV show on Disney Plus, which I'm sure a lot of our fans have seen, which is called Prop Culture. And in it, they do basically all of my favorite movies. There's the Muppet movie, there's Tron, there's they go through and they just hit all my favorite movies. I don't think there was a Rocketeer, but maybe season 2, who knows?
That would be cool.
But in it, there is a Roger Rabbit, and in it, he actually, the guy who is the host, whose name escapes me right now, he goes in and he finds out that there was a stand-in for Roger. There was like this actual Roger Rabbit that they would put that was at the right height, and they would use him for positioning so that the actors know, who they were talking to, how high, and all that kind of stuff. Also, Charles Fleischer, who was the voice of Roger Rabbit, would be on set wearing his Roger Rabbit costume with the ears and everything. So that's kind of funny. I guess he just wanted to be part of it, but. He was amazing in this, and I think that I don't know that he gets enough notoriety. He was on a TV show in the '70s called Welcome Back, Kotter, and other than that, in this, so here he is in the red overalls on set with the rabbit ears and everything. But other than
he has a scene in Back to the Future 2 because Robert Zemeckis had directed Roger Rabbit and he loved Charles, so he pulled him over, and he has a little. I think he's holding a newspaper when they finally go back to the future. So if you're watching Back to the Future 2, keep an eye out. But also fun was Paul Rubens was considered to be the voice for Roger before they had Charles Fleischer, who is most commonly known as Pee Wee Herman.
Yes.
Which would have been his name.
Yeah, I could see that, but I feel like with Charles Fleischer, you don't know as much about him, so you would always... Right, exactly. The B movie, it's Jerry Seinfeld. You just know it is, and so it feels weird sometimes. With this one, at least with Charles Fleischer, you don't really think about him, and so it's just Roger. But he also plays the voice of Benny the Cab. So I mean, he's multi-talented. He can be two characters talking to each other at the same time. And couldn't they have afforded a second actor? I don't know. By the way, you were talking about behind the scenes stuff. There are some extras on Disney Plus, which is very rare, I think. I think they should be doing a lot more of that. I've talked about that before. There's a deleted scene with a pig head where Eddie gets a pig head that's very disturbing. And then there's the trailer, and then there's the roller coaster rabbit cartoon, because after the Roger Rabbit movie, there were cartoons, and we'll talk about that later. But there are actually some extra features, including a 37-minute behind the scenes with Robert Zemeckis and talking about the whole thing. So let's go back to the Ink and Paint Club. This is where we meet Jessica for the first time, and if you've never seen it before, you probably thought she was a rabbit, and she comes out, and we find out she's not a rabbit, and she does her whole musical number, and I love the scene where Betty Boop closes his mouth because Eddie's jaw just drops when he sees her, and he just closes like she just closes his mouth. And there's a lot of scenes, a lot of the scene where she walks in and she sits on Marvin Acme's lap, and she will mess with with Eddie's like coat and hat, and again a lot of behind the scenes trickery that happened with that I think we just we kind of just take for granted that Jessica's doing all that stuff, don't we?
Yeah, I agree, because she's actually touching these actors, which is hard to animate when you like. I don't know about that scene if they actually had someone else do it, or if it was just the actor themselves closing their mouth. But Jessica interacts with Eddie a lot in this film. We'll talk about it more later, but I think one scene that really sticks out to me is when I think she grabs like a mallet out of the back of his car when Roger's in the trunk, and she like shuts the door, and it's crazy to think about. Even when the stork is riding the bike in the beginning, when you're looking around the studio and he's riding the bike, it's similar to like what we've seen in the Muppet movie where the bike is balancing, but every little scene has something where the characters are interacting with a real life set.
Yeah, amazing. So she's singing, but she's not actually singing. I mean, it's like Zac Efron in High School Musical, the first movie. He wasn't singing. Sorry for the spoils, but you should watch the Deep in the Plus we did on that one. But Amy Irving, the actress who was also married to Steven Spielberg at the time, ended up being the singing voice. Like, I don't know why that never dawned on me that she wasn't the singing voice.
Yeah, well, Jessica has a really like deep kind of raspy, mysterious voice, and the singing voice isn't the same. I love it. I think her singing voice is really good, but I think it's a little bit different than what Jessica portrays in the film.
So Kathleen Turner plays the speaking voice of Jessica Rabbit, and she comes out and she's this, I feel like I can say voluptuous redhead. And she comes out and she like works the crowd and works Eddie, and Marvin Acme, who is the head of Acme, like the joke factory, is there, and he never misses a show with Jessica, and so that's why Eddie is there. He's there to take pictures of Marvin and Jessica together, playing patty cake. Weird. But then they go, she sings and she's there. She is actually not credited in the original movie as being a voice in this, which blows my mind, because I feel like when I think of this movie, I think that like Kathleen Turner being part of it's like the first thing I think of.
Yeah, that's weird. She's not credited.
And then she went on to be on Friends, and she was Chandler's dad, which is just, again, another weirdness that would be the case. But she was a big actress at the time, Romancing the Stone. She had, I think, Body Heat may have been one of the movies. So she was a big actress at the time. Yeah, definitely deep voice. And then she and Marvin go into the back, and they're going to play patty cake. And again, this is where I'm thinking this is a Disney movie, but again, reminding myself it's Touchstone, and they're playing patty cake, and it's just this like very like suggestive what they're doing, and then you find out they're literally playing patty cake.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie before and you're watching this for the first time as an adult, I think that would, first of all, that would be crazy. I would love to watch this film, like, had never seen it, erase from my memory, and rewatch it as an adult and get my first take on it. But there's a lot where they're really, like, Roger's upset. They know that something's going on with Jessica, and they're playing patty cake. And even as a kid, you're kind of like, what are they doing? Like, what could he possibly be doing? But, yeah, they're just sitting in, I think it's Jessica's dressing room playing patty cake. So it's little jokes like that throughout the film.
One of the things, and I didn't have time to pull it ahead of time, but I wanted to pull it real quick right now, is that so when they take these pictures, they take them and they show them to Roger, so that they think Roger's distracted. They want to say, hey, this is what's happening, is your wife is cheating on you, playing patty cake with this other guy. So there's this picture that they show Roger of Jessica playing patty cake with Marvin Acme, and it's this fun bit where he goes through them quickly, and it makes it seem like it's animation because it's like one cell after another, which is really, it's a good bit. But then there's also this, which is the newspaper that's sitting on Eddie's desk later, and the animation is completely different. And it just, like, I don't know that I noticed it when I was a kid, but when I saw it this time, it just drove me bananas.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's just because
I noticed that.
they changed I think they just changed what she was going to look like, maybe, between the two. But it's just weird that they would, like, the pictures would be one way and the newspaper would be the other, because they clearly went to the trouble to do both. Maybe it's just because they
That
weren't
is
going to be
crazy.
close up.
That picture's wild. I've never seen that.
You've never seen that?
I've never really noticed, like, looking close, but yeah, that's not Jessica.
Well, you're definitely a super fan. I can't believe you would have missed that one.
I know.
Shame on you. You know what? You were talking about there not being a sequel, and I'm fine with that. And I read in the chat, and they're fine with that too. We're all fine with that. My problem is I want more of Roger Rabbit merch to be out there than is, and more Roger Rabbit attractions and all that kind of stuff. So
I would love to see more shorts.
yes, and more shorts. Yeah, exactly. Well, I said merch, you said shorts. I was thinking wearing shorts, but you mean the Roger Rabbit cartoon shorts. So, yeah, we'll definitely talk a little bit about that more at the end. But I'm obsessed, and I don't have enough stuff. Like, as you know, I have tons of Disney stuff, tons of Star Wars stuff, things that are Star Wars and Disney.
I have one cool Roger Rabbit thing I will show you guys. I have the record. This is like one of my most favorite records of all time.
Oh, wait a minute, wait.
Okay, this record, if you guys can see, it came out for the anniversary. It is very cool. I love collecting records, so I had to get Roger, of course. But it came with the printed will and testament that Roger writes for Jessica in lipstick. And I framed it because I thought it was so cool. But I agree, not enough merchandise. I wish we had more. Even in the parks, like, Roger Rabbit has an attraction at Disneyland, and there's barely anything. I don't think there is anything.
Well, and I think it's a rights issue at this point, right? Because Amblin Entertainment has a stake in it. Steven Spielberg, I think it's a rights issue for the character himself. So, and well, I guess and all the characters that are around it. Something that I don't have a really good picture of, but I thought was amazing, was in that scene where Jessica's on stage, is her dress. The sequin effect that they do as she moves on that dress is pretty amazing. Again, for 1988 technology, they did a really good job on that. So, if you're watching the movie, go ahead and check that out. That's kind of cool. So I moving on with this thing. And again, we're not gonna describe every moment of this throughout the whole thing, but I love that. I'm looking through the scene where Roger is finding out about the affair, and he's like, "She's the cream in my coffee." Like, I just like this sad little thing where that he shows so much like personality, and you just fall in love with Roger, and it's kind of a mystery movie, right? And I assume that that's true to the book, is it's a mystery of who censored Roger. This is who framed Roger. You don't know, you're not supposed to know anyway. Did Roger do it? Did Jessica do it? Who did what? Because right after we see these pictures, Eddie goes back to his office, and we find out a little bit more about Eddie through a pan across his office, that he had a brother, Teddy. They were on the Toontown beat, and they worked together, and they were great friends. And and Teddy is gone now, and Teddy and Eddie and Dolores, they were an inseparable trio, and life was great. And they went to Catalina and all this great thing. And so you see a lot of that as they're panning across, and then a police officer shows up and says, "Hey, Eddie, the rabbit killed Marvin Acme last night," and they take him out to Acme to see the scene of the crime, and he dropped a safe on his head, and that's where we find out that a tune had killed Eddie's brother. So dark, very dark. But in this scene, we meet Christopher Lloyd's character, Judge Doom, and he is super dark, super scary, super intense. Again, like some of the violence and the scariness and the words and the innuendo, I feel like this today would have been a PG-13 and not just a PG.
He is really creepy. He actually does not blink once during the entire film. Kind of because, not to spoil it for you guys, I'm sure you know, but later you find out that he actually is a toon. So to make him seem like a toon while he was being played by a human, he did not blink once, which makes him so creepy a little bit. But Yeah, I think Christopher Lloyd does a great job with this role, though. I think he's one of like this what I think of when I think of Roger Rabbit, especially because I love the Zemeckis crossover again from Back to the Future. But Judge Doom is scary. He has dip. Dip is what kills tunes. It is. I'm pretty sure it's a mix of acetone. I'm not sure it's acetone, which
Right.
is obviously what helps get rid of ink. So it's the tune killer, and everyone's terrified. And then after, as Rob was saying, after they find out that he's dead, Eddie goes back to his apartment to find Roger. Roger is hidden in his, what is the bed called that goes up against the wall?
Murphy bed.
A Murphy bed. Roger is sitting in a Murphy bed. Eddie, you gotta help me. I didn't murder him. You gotta help me. The postman let me in. I don't know what to do. You gotta get me out of here. The weasels are looking for me. So then we have this whole elaborate scene, which I think is absolutely crazy, in Eddie's apartment, because Roger like bounces on the bed and you can see the bed actually go down, and there's a scene where Eddie has him in the sink underneath and the water's splashing. It's super cool. And then even after that, sorry not to steal the show, Rob, but they head over to the, what was the name of the restaurant that Dolores is at? Blanking.
Oh, the you mean
Bar.
the bar, the terminal station.
Yes, so Eddie takes him down to the terminal station and hides him in the back room with Dolores. And this has to be my favorite scene in the movie because it's the shadows with Roger are crazy. The term bumping the lamp actually comes from this film because Eddie and Roger are handcuffed due to Roger being crazy. They're handcuffed and Eddie's trying to saw it off, and he's throwing Roger around, and Roger's hitting the lamp, and it's in this dark, dim back room, and all you see is Roger flying and his shadow flying, and even the animator said this was one of the hardest scenes to animate to this day. So that is one of my favorite scenes, at least. And I think it's like, it really is like he's a real person. Like, what would Eddie do if this was an actual person? He'd probably bring him to the back of the terminal station. So it's, you can see Eddie and Roger's relationship develop more during this time, which I also think makes Roger more personable, and you're able to connect with the character more.
There was a lot of bits in this that I love, but I love that Doc. I was going to say Doc Brown. K-Jack, you did that to me. K-Jack said in chat, called him Doc Brown, but that Judge Doom is playing the shave and a haircut song, the dun da 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 da, because he's like, no tune can resist the shave and the haircut bit. And Eddie's like, man, this guy is out of his mind. He's loonier than you are if he thinks. And he turns around and Roger's losing it because he can't not do like shave and a haircut. So I mean, it's just, that to me is a great bit, because you're like, you're like, no, Roger, like you're feeling that for him. You're like, don't do it. But we all feel that way. Like every now and then, like, you know, that's just one of those default things. It's like if somebody goes, you have to kind of, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it out there. And if, you know, probably at home, you're just knocking twice. You're like, I can't leave that unfinished. So I love that bit with him. But just, you know, to go back a second to when Judge Doom is showing how he dispenses justice, and he has them open up this thing of dip, and he takes this tuned shoe that had gotten away and he puts it down in there. That they're killing this thing. They see, you see how cute he is and everything, and he's shoving him down there, and like you're witnessing a murder at this point. And it's a red shoe, so when he pulls his glove out, it's almost like he's got blood all the way down this glove, and that can't have been on like an accident. It had to have been on purpose.
Yeah, and what kind of cool, if we have Simpsons fans in the chat, the little shoe is actually voiced by Nancy Cartwright, who is the voice of Bart, and that was her first appearance. So when you hear the little shoe, he's crying as they're about to literally murder him. That is Nancy Cartwright.
Whoa. Okay. So I just, again, back to the part, like they've captured him in the bar, and they bring in the dip because they're going to put him away immediately. They're going to execute him right now. And then Eddie gives him a drink because he's like, hey, you know, he knows from back in Maroon's office that a drink sends Roger into this like tailspin. So he goes in and gives him this, he wants him to take this drink, and he does that reverse, like very cartoony reverse bit on him where he's like, you want it? And he goes, I don't. You do. I don't. And he goes, you don't. I do. And I just, It's very Bugs Bunny, and I don't know why, and it makes me smile every time. It's dumb. It's dumb, and I still love it.
It's dumb. But even the way that Eddie interacts in that scene when he's trying to get Roger to have the drink, and the drink is splashing from between him and Roger, is just insane. It really is. Like, I still cannot wrap my head around the animation in this film. I may just be a little animation nerd, but like after that point, everything just continues to get better and better and better. But yeah, I agree with you, Rob.
And there are a bunch of lines from this that I love too that I can't like not think of when I think of this movie, and almost like quote them out loud. And there's the part where he's in the handcuffs with Eddie, which is why they've come here, and he's trying to saw the handcuffs off, and Roger goes, will this help? And he takes his hand out of the handcuffs and holds onto the table, and he's like, you could have taken your hand out of that anytime you wanted to. And he goes, not anytime, only when it was funny.
Yeah. Roger has some good ones. I think he says, all I want is to make people laugh. Or he doesn't, he thinks the guy in the bar is going to rat on him for being back there, and he's like, he won't rat on me, I made him laugh. And he ends up not ratting on him, which proves a point for Roger to Eddie, that sometimes laughter is all everyone needs, which I think is a good message in this movie.
The end. Laughter is all anybody needs. The end. That's really good. Right. So moving on through this, Dr. Doom's teeth freak me out. And again, Judge Doom, not Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom, that's Fantastic Four. That's don't at me, Doctor. Anyway, so he's also not only the teeth, but he's also just a mean dude in general. There's a war veteran in the bar, and he has his arm cut off, but he had like his sleeve rolled up, and Doom like reaches over, grabs his empty sleeve, and uses it to wipe the board.
Because he can't touch it, because it's actually a cartoon, so he can't touch the dip himself.
That's true. Like, and so after they trick Roger into drinking the drink, the whole place goes nuts. Eddie pushes the dip over, and he backs away from it really quickly. And you assume it's just because it's like, oh, this is like acetate, but it's because he is also himself attuned and would not want to be touched by it. So they run outside to get into they're going to steal the Weasel's Tomb Patrol car, and when they get out there, they actually find out that Benny the Cab is in the back. Roger frees Benny, and they go off, and take off from there. So one of the things about this, and talking back about behind the scenes, is that the prop culture talks about this, but also there used to be at the backstage restaurant at Hollywood Studios, there used to be this fake car that they used for this movie, and there was a picture of it. And so here you can see what Bob Hoskins looked like as he was sitting in this fake car driving around, and then they just animated Benny around him. But this used to be a prop that was in there at Hollywood Studios in the restaurant, and you can see the people on the other side there eating. And I feel like this thing kind of either fell to pieces or something, but I don't think it's there anymore. So sad.
I checked last time and it wasn't.
Yeah. So you're familiar with the fact that it's there. And there were a lot of other cool things at Hollywood Studios. There was this window of Eddie Valiant's office, which when Roger went through the window, he actually went through the window at Maroon Studios, but they have this window, and then right next to Eddie Valiant, Private Investigator, which that should have said Valiant and Valiant, I believe, I don't think that ever changed before the end of the movie. And then there was this Maroon Studios billboard that used to be up at I don't think that's up anymore at Hollywood Studios.
No, it's still there.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, that one is there. That one lives on.
And then there was like the whole gag shop. Did you ever go and take your picture underneath the...
Never went to the gag shop.
Sorry. Well, there was a steamroller in it. And let me pull that up for you as well. I don't know if everybody else appreciates this stuff as much as I do, but I miss this stuff. There was like a steamroller where you could lay down underneath it and look like you were getting run over. Like the kids love to do. Just get to pretend like you've been run over by a steamroller. and just all this stuff that was there. But we never had an attraction. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that near the end there. So there was the Jessica at some point goes to Eddie's office and says to him, like, I didn't do this, and I just want Roger to be happy. And Maroon paid me or threatened me and said Roger would never work in this town again if I didn't pose for those patty cake pictures. And so Eddie's still trying to piece all this together. And she says, again, one of the best lines, I think, in this movie, which is, I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way.
Iconic.
Yep. And then Dolores walks in and catches him, and she goes, dabbling in watercolors, Eddie? Boom. Got him.
That is a good line. I love Dolores. I think Dolores is a great character.
And then the weasels, the head weasel is the voice of it is the same guy who played Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley, which you guys probably have no idea about, but he played the voice of the head weasel. But his bit, which I don't know that I recognize this until I watched this with subtitles, is that he gets every one word wrong all the time. So it's like, we walked around town and we corrugated your story, and well, let's disresemble the place, and just like there's always one word that's like not supposed to be there, that I think because of his accent, like I just assumed it was like a gangster accent, that it was just him talking. I didn't realize that it was purposely one word wrong every time.
I didn't know that.
Watch it with subtitles next time. Yeah. So they're trying to put all this together. I think Eddie's getting ready to like run out of town because he's on the lam because now everybody knows he's been working with Roger. And they go to the movie theater. And again, a line that I love is like, he tells Roger at this point that a tune killed my brother. And then Roger's crying, and he's like, yeah, I see why you hate me. And he's like, I don't hate you. He's like, what about all the times you yanked my ears? And he's like, I'm sorry I yanked your ears. And he looks at him and goes, well, all the times you yanked my ears? And it's just like, I don't know why. That's a line I like.
That's a good scene. I love that they're watching the old Goofy shorts. And one thing, Roger's ears very much display how he's feeling throughout the film. I was watching, if you watch the behind the scenes, the lead animator for Roger talks about how that's how, like, the key to see how Roger's feeling or what he's taking from the situation is look at his ears. And they're almost like ballet slippers. Like, they are always moving, interacting with each other. But, cool little part.
I'm with you. I like it. I was looking for a picture of his ears so that I could show. This is the one where he's so sad and he's telling the story about everything. I think Bob Hoskins did an amazing job in this, and so much so that I don't think I knew until way later in my life that he was British, because he does such a good job of this like this 1930s, 1940s accent, the wise guy kind of thing, and he's such a good job that I wouldn't have picked that out. Unfortunately, he's passed away at this point. I believe everybody else from the movie is still alive. I know that Christopher Lloyd is, and Kathleen Turner, Charles Fleischer. They revisited a lot of these folks when they did the Prop Culture episode, which, again, I would highly recommend you watch if you haven't watched it already. It's a season, but you can watch one movie at a time, and this one was really good as they were going through it. So, anyway, so now... they've got to go to Toontown and figure out, because Roger, when they go to confront R.K. Maroon, they were at the movie theater. I'm jumping ahead. They were at the movie theater, and they're leaving, and they see a newsreel about Cloverleaf, which is this company that just bought the red car, and doing a deal with R.K. Maroon for this big real estate deal. And so he's like, it must be Maroon was responsible for the death of Marvin Acme, because when Marvin died, there was like 24 hours, and then Toontown, the property he owned, would get turned over to the highest bidder, which was going to be Cloverleaf. And so he's put this together. He and Roger go to confront Maroon. Roger stays by the car. He gets bopped in the head, thrown into a trunk. Maroon gets killed, and then the car gets stolen, and so he chases the car. Eddie chases the car towards Toontown, and he stops right before Toontown because he hasn't been in Toontown since his brother was killed, and he's not sure if he wants to go in. I love that this is a real place, and have you been? You've been there, right? To the tunnel at Griffith. Yeah.
It's not
I
very often you get a Disney movie that's based in downtown Los Angeles. So when I used to come visit, I would always go. I've been to, it's not obviously Maroon Studio, it's owned by a different studio, but I've been to Maroon Studios, the tunnel going into Griffith, which is very popular. I'm sure you guys have seen this in other movies. It's in Back to the Future, Roger, but it's super cool. Like if you are in LA and have time, there's a link online that shows like all the different spots you can go to. And they're easy. It's if you're a huge fan and I love old movies based in LA, just like Rocketeer, which is another one of my favorites. It's fun to go see where they are.
Yeah. So yeah, this is there. He's on the lam and he's going there. I mean, not on the lam. He's chasing this car and he goes there and he stops and he gets out this box, and in the box it says it's a gun, like a cartoon gun, and it's from Yosemite Sam. This bothers me. This bothers me, Katie. Do you know why?
What?
In the beginning, when Marvin's been killed and he and the police chief go to see like the scene of the crime, Yosemite Sam comes over the top of the wall, and his britches are burning, or his biscuits are burning, and he's got fire, and he sits down in a puddle, which then steams. And so they're right there with him, and I would have thought he would have said, "Oh, hey Eddie, my good friend that I gave this gun to."
Well, I think he had given it to his brother. That was the whole thing.
Gotcha.
That
Okay.
it was his brother's gun.
All right, then
But also,
I'll
I
forgive
can
it.
see
And then with the gun, it has 6 bullets, and one of them is they're all like cowboys, but this one is a Native American, and it feels a little bit culturally insensitive in 2021.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the parts. I watched the movie recently, and that stuck out to me as well.
So then he goes into Toontown, and it's the first time we get to see it. And again, gags left and right. There's all this stuff that you see. He crashes the car. The song they sing when the curtains open up at the end of the tunnel, I don't know that I knew the words to that. So again, I had the subtitles on. Try it. It's really weird. They're always distracting to me, so I don't usually keep them on, but they were on. And it said, "Smile, darn you, smile." I don't know that I knew that's what it said. I thought it was like...
They played it down here.
Okay. But again, I don't know that that's... I knew it was smile, but I was like, it sounded like smile when you smile. I don't know. Like,
I
it's
think it's just like, why aren't you smiling? Smile, darn you, smile.
It's great. No shade here. So...
aggressively making people laugh.
So then he's looking at all this stuff, and like the birds are talking to him, and then he smashes into this traffic light, or this traffic post, and Mr. Toad comes around and he's yelling "Tally ho!" You can see the 7 dwarves in the background. Like, this is just, it's Toontown, and it's awesome. And again, obviously Toontown in California, inspired by the movie. Great timing, really kind of cool. It's really neat the way that all of that plays out. And then, of course, the Mickey and Bug scene as he's fallen down. So just this whole movie and all the stuff that it took to put it together, I really appreciate even more today than I did then.
I agree.
So when we pick up from there, he goes back to the scene of the crime. We find out that that it's Judge Doom who is actually the Toon who killed his brother, and he's like, "When I killed your brother, I talked just like," and it just like it gets really high, and it's very disturbing, the transformation from Judge Doom into this, and then he gets run over by the steamroller. and then the will was written on this paper that Roger had but it was written in invisible ink, because that's Marvin Acme, a jokester to the end, and the entire Toontown is saved. But it's really neat to me that that they bring so many people together, so many characters together in that final scene. It's just kind of like, hey, this is like, it's like curtain call.
It's nice seeing all of them together, I think. The finale is so good.
Yeah. So I'm looking for. Yeah. So here is a little piece of that. just Pinocchio and Wile E. Coyote and yeah, and then they're singing the song, and you got the bouncer, and you can see Brer Bear in there, and Mickey Mouse and Dopey, and I mean, it's just like a really cool happily ever after, and they walk off into the Toontown sunset. Kind of nifty. Just very cool. So I there's a lot of stuff that happened after this, and never enough stuff for me, right? So we talked a little bit about some of the stuff at Hollywood Studios. There was supposed to be a Roger Rabbit's Toontown that was going to have this simulator and a Benny the Cab ride, and it was going to be awesome. And it never happened, and it makes me sad that it never happened. This land and the Muppets Land that were supposed to happen are the two that make me the saddest that never came to fruition, because they were right there and they were planned and ready to go.
Roger, I think, deserves a spot in studios. I think he always has. It's a bummer that we're starting to see less and less, even of the props in the backlot, but maybe one day we will see more of him. I went to 80s Night at Disneyland, and they had Roger out, so he's still alive a little bit at Disneyland. We have Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, obviously, which I think is 27 years old now, and that is a classic. If you haven't done it, head back to Toontown in Disneyland. It's one of my favorite attractions in the park. It's such a cool dark ride.
It is, and
are often, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, is the queue open now? It's not, right?
No, the queue, currently in California, they're only allowing guests to queue up outside because there's a time limit of how much time guests can spend inside in indoor attractions, so all the queues are outside. But I'm pretty sure we have a few full walkthrough of the queue on the site, but this is one of the craziest queues I've ever been through. There is so much detail. The lighting is amazing. It actually feels like you're like in the back alleys of Toontown. You have views into the actual attraction as you're walking by. They have like the dip counter. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, they have the weasels walking through.
Yeah, I love that when you get there and the ape, is at the bouncers at the window, and all the whispering, and it is so well done. And there's these joke license plates, and yeah, just everything is really cool with that attraction. I love it top to bottom. We also had this at Pleasure Island that Jessica Rabbit like kind of had a leg that would kick out as part of a sign at Pleasure Island. That was kind of neat to see. I missed that that's not there anymore. But I found this picture, and you were talking about you could meet Roger Rabbit, and I think that would have been so cool to get a picture taken with Roger Rabbit. He used to be at Disney World. He's not anymore. I don't think he comes out for any reason, but he was there for for the 25th anniversary parade. They actually had a big Roger Rabbit float that was there, like a balloon. But I saw this picture and it's a little disturbing. Can you tell me why this is a thing?
Because the Jessica character is terrifying. Everyone hated her.
Yes. Okay. Just making sure. Have you ever seen it in person?
I have never seen it. The only times I have seen Roger are on Easter. They brought out all the different bunnies in the Frontierland Ranch that used to be a thing at Disneyland, and I saw him at 80s Night, but I never saw Jessica. I know that she actually was in a few parades not too long ago. People were freaking out about, but I haven't. Yeah.
Sean says that it's one of the best ride queues in Disneyland. And somebody said that Roger has been at DCA recently. So I just...
He was in DCA recently?
That's the word on the streets. That's what I'm hearing.
Tell me that.
Yeah, because you'll just go and camp out there. I want to go get my picture taken with Oswald. He's never there when I want to go to DCA.
Oswald is super cute.
So we covered a lot of stuff, and I know we've gone pretty deep into this. Thank you guys for watching with us. If you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. It helps people find it. It helps people find Deep in the Plus, and we really appreciate everybody who's been out there, and been watching the movies with us, and then coming back here and watching the reviews with us. We really appreciate you guys coming and hanging out in the chat and everything. So again, if you give us a thumbs up, and also subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of great programming on the WDWNT Entertainment. So we would appreciate that too. Is there anything else before you give your final say on this, which is not going to be a surprise, but that you wanted to cover before we close out?
I'm ready to close out.
Okay. Also, by the way, thank you guys for hitting we got 58 likes tonight, and if we hit 50, we always open a wishable, and I actually have a Star Tours wishable that we'll open up before we're done. So thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. So Katie, would you recommend this movie?
Absolutely. Sometimes I say, I recommend this movie to a certain age group or someone who's maybe interested in this or that. I recommend Roger Rabbit to everyone. This is, I think, a classic in cinema. I will be that dramatic that I think this has a place not only in the Disney library, but as something that I feel like most people know who aren't even Disney fans. Roger Rabbit is so good. It can be a family movie. It can be an adult movie. It can be whatever you want it to be. I think the characters are memorable and lovable. The soundtrack is amazing. And I hope we never get a sequel because I think it is perfect how it is. And if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. Let me know what you think. I'm sure Rob will have some similar things to say.
Yeah, and again, I know a lot of you guys watch these movies, in almost homework for Deep in the Plus. So again, we appreciate that. If you're studying up for next week, it's going to be High School Musical 2 with Patrick because he's just been dying to talk about it. So we're going to do High School Musical 2. So study up. It's going to be great. For me, this is one of my top movies. And I'd probably say that about more than I should. Nightmare Before Christmas, which you and I did. Rocketeer, which you and I did. Roger Rabbit, which we're doing that now. So all of those are those are three of my favorite movies. Tron, Jill and I did Tron Legacy, but Tron, I love that movie. It's very dear to me, but I wouldn't like that. Go back and recommend that one because I'm not sure it stands the test of time. It was ahead of its time. It's a really neat story, but to me, Roger Rabbit holds up. Roger Rabbit is for the whole family. Roger Rabbit, again, it's a little intense at times, and so that would be the only caveat or warning that I would give, but it is very fun. It is still fun for me to watch this movie again and remember these little scenes and these lines that I loved so much when I was watching it and growing up. And I had Roger Rabbit collector's cards, and I really wish I could get more Roger Rabbit memorabilia. What?
I don't know if I'm sure there's some Californians watching this. I see some of you in the chat. If you've never been to Frank and Sons, they have a whole booth of Roger Rabbit merchandise, and they have the cards and plushes and everything.
The cards I have, I wanted more, and there was a gag shop at Disneyland the first time I went, right behind the Roger Rabbit or next to the Roger Rabbit attraction, which now is going to be the entrance to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So that's gone, but they had stopped selling Roger Rabbit merchandise long ago. But like the little stuffed Rogers, I had a little a rubber one, like a bendy one that was about this big. I tried to find that before the show, I couldn't find it. I'm a huge fan, and for WDWNT for our Stage 89 event, because this was 88 was this movie, June of 88, so Roger Rabbit was kind of representative of the studios when they opened in 89, and so we had magnets that we gave away for Stage 89 that had Roger on it. So it's just, man, he holds a special place for me. I love this movie. I love watching this. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot that you guys would stick around with us and watch it, watch this review, listen to us talk, and just gush over it. So again, we're going to open this because everybody loves an unboxing. And Katie, so you have C-3PO, right? And I have the Star Speeder. By the way, Star Speeder, this is a Star Speeder 1000. But on the back of the package, it says 3000. Okay, just making sure. I think I know what this is. So I think, do you have a guess?
I think it's a stormtrooper.
I think it is Rex. And I haven't opened this. It's been driving me nuts because I was waiting for tonight to open it up. Ba, bum, ba. He's so good. Neko be jealous if I get a second one, But this, he's adorable. He's awesome, and oh my gosh, that's so cool. So thank you guys for the likes and chat. Really appreciate it. And again, we appreciate you watching this with us. Please give a like if you haven't. Please subscribe if you haven't. I know some of you guys are going to go over and watch Timekeeping on WDWNT YouTube channel. But please come back here and visit us next Tuesday night when we do High School Musical 2 and be ready for that. And Katie, thanks so much for all the coverage you've done for Disneyland. Been amazing. We're living vicariously through you. I'm super jealous, and please talk to somebody so that I can come out there and get to go finally. I miss the place.
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great night, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.